All right, well, we like that little National Geographic little clip there. So I'm doing a lot to tease my friend Pedro because he's a voracious reader. He's a voracious researcher. He knows biblical Hebrew. And we're not going to stick to just academics. We're going to talk a little bit about the Watchtower, too, and some of the things that, there's so many topics. This show is called Topical Discussions. So there's so many topics we could kind of dissect as far as the Watchtower and their beliefs and their policies and different things. So, Caleb, what's on the agenda first? Or do you want to just kind of explain a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Hey, Josh. Yeah, basically I want to start off by basically the purpose of what we do here on the show. The main purpose that I want to put out, I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm not here to start a new religion or guru religion. I'm basically here with Josh discussing different topics, whether if it's archaeological information, textual issue information. My main goal here is basically to empower people with information, and what you do with that information is entirely up to the individual. Whether you want to accept it or reject it, you're free to do so. I'm not here to convince anyone or anybody. I basically been trained in the academia world that, evidence speaks for itself. You could either reject it or take it. It's up to the individual. It's between the individual and God. And that's basically my main purpose for the show, is to empower people with information.
Very good, very good. So, I just got to do this. Just not to get too deep into it, but what set you out on this path to where you're at now? Are you an ex-JW? I know you, but for the benefit of the audience, like, where did you get to this point where you get to this place where you do so much research on all these type of things that we talk about offline a lot?
It all started back, I would say, several years right after my baptism, around 1988. Although I was in the organization, should we say, I still, in the back of my mind, I still question things. I still, I'm the type of person that, I'll listen to your point of view, whatever point of view it is, but again, my motto is, where is your evidence? Where did you get this information? Is the information you're giving me reliable, or is it just full of tabloid sensationalism, and it looks interesting, but once you look at it carefully and then dissect it, does it stand on water? Sadly, in the world we live today, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of sensationalism, tabloid information, in the internet especially, everywhere, and you have to be very careful as a researcher to kind of sift through all the noise and kind of like make sure that what you're getting is the best information as possible. For example, looking back, it was not until maybe around 1995, around there, 94, that I made a pen pal friend. He's a friend of mine. His native family from Israel. And at the time, he was in my area. And we became good friends, and we wrote to each other and came to by and visit me, and we spoke. And I got acquainted with the Hebrew through him, in the sense that I've always, even when I got baptized, I've always had fascinated about the biblical language. At the time, of course, I didn't have the resource or nobody I can go to. Basically, I had the Bible, and that's what I had. I had many versions, different type of versions. But back then, even if I didn't have the academia and understanding, I knew that those were just versions. That those basically were just commentaries of different translators. And one thing that always in the back of my head through the years of me studying, with the witnesses and then religion, how do I know for sure if what the translator is saying is that's what it says? If you really think about it, there is no other way. I can get different English Bibles, but all I'd be doing is buying other commentaries of a commentary. So the only way I knew that I could find out for sure and verify myself is I would have to commit myself to learning the language. And luckily, I was in the right place at the right time, my friend. He basically acquainted me with one of his Hebrew professors in Israel. And it was around 2003 or so, which was a good time, by the way, because that was about the time that a company by the name of Skype released a public beta of a video conferencing, which then that gave me the opportunity to video conference with the professor from Israel. And so officially my studies began around 2004. And through my friend, he acquainted me with his professor. He took me as a tutor. I was committed to learning the language. So I basically learned the biblical language through a very respected proofreader in the Israel. He's one of the leading proofreaders for a project that was done back in the 50s called the Hub Project. It's called the Hebrew University Bible Project. And he is one of the proofreaders. What his job basically is that he compiles all different ancient manuscripts from the Dead Sea Scrolls, from Greek texts like the Septuagint, the Peshitta, different types of different manuscripts, and compiling them, because what they're working on, they're trying to create what's called a master text. And they want to make sure that we have the most accurate, the most precise Hebrew text, and they're compiling that. So future Bibles that would be produced in future generations, they will have a much better translation of it. So that's basically his job. That's a long process that they're doing right now. So basically,
just to clarify, I don't mean to cut you. I just want to clarify. So, talking about this hub project, what they're doing is they're doing a lot of proofreading of all the manuscripts, not different translations, whatever, but they're proofreading the manuscripts and what the copyists did from ancient times. Am I correct in describing it that way?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, that's correct. For example, one of their most latest treasures that they have is called the Aleppo Codex. It is called the Crown Jewel. They have it, actually, it's in the Shrine of the Book, a place called the Shrine of the Book. It's in Israel. In this place, it's a museum where they keep, like the Dead Sea Scroll. People can go visit there. They can see one of the largest complete Dead Sea Scroll called the Great Isaiah manuscript. If you can read Hebrew, of course you can read it. You can see it yourself. People can go there and see it. But they have others. They have what's called others from the Dead Sea. Not only biblical manuscript, but other writings from the Essenes, which was an ancient monastic Jewish culture that lived in the time of Jesus. They have their writings compiled there as well in vaults, which only very few have a privilege to go there. Not everybody can go in those vaults. Only very, very high technical linguistic people can go there. Now there's no necessity for that because now that's available on the Internet. Thanks to Google, Google made a contract with Israel, and basically their job, Google did, is they photocopied digitally the entire collection of the Aleppo Codex. You can go online and you can see it yourself. You just type in Google, type Aleppo Codex, and you can go to their main site, and you can see the one of the oldest vocalized Hebrew manuscripts, and which now is available not only for average readers that can read it, but for scholars as well.
Oh, that's interesting. That's just fascinating. Once this project is done, I know you mentioned to me before offline that all future translations are going to be done from that master text, right?
Correct. There's going to be a lot of editing done because the Bible we have today, doesn't matter what versions we have. They're all basically commentaries based on what we have today is called the Codex of Leningrad, B19. And it's what happened is that when the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls occurred, and with the Aleppo Codex as well, they made comparisons to it. And what they found is that, amazingly, that there was not a lot of mistakes. Actually, the scribes were it showed how meticulous the Masoretic scribes were. They were very, very, very professional in their art. But like humans, they do make slip-ups. And the slip-ups major? No. They're very, very, very minute, almost insignificant. It doesn't change the meaning of the text whatsoever in any way. But in the field of manuscript, we want to make sure that everything is up. They're very meticulous, up to the T. So the Aleppo Codex is an example of how meticulous these Masoretic scribes were. Matter of fact, one of the leading professors got to see it, and it was funny the way he said it. He said it almost like if an angel wrote it. It has no eraser, no markings, perfectly copied. It's almost like if a scribe meticulously by hand, no slip-ups, no marks, no eraser, nothing, beautifully done. And that's the one, basically, that was one of the manuscripts that Maimonides used as his personal study.
Now, who is Maimonides again?
Maimonides basically was a Jewish rabbi of the 15th, 14th century. He was basically a rabbi who made commentaries on rabbinical law. And when he read the Torah, he based it on that manuscript, on that codex. Okay. Because it's just the authoritative. As a matter of fact, people from Israel would go there when they make copies of the Torah. They would compare with that manuscript. No other one, only that one, to make sure that their copies were to the T, to make comparisons. So what it shows is even the Dead Sea Scrolls, the one that they found, when they compared it, it showed, wow, almost incredible accuracy, how meticulous these scribes were. And in the tradition of those scribes, when they do a mistake, a big one, they destroy the scrolls. They don't keep it. They destroy it because they don't want it mixed up with copies that are well preserved when they're copying. So that's their routine. They trash the ones that are no good to make sure they preserve as much as possible their tradition of the text.
Okay, so that's I've always found archaeology and all that kind of stuff very, very fascinating. So how does that help us now when we're trying to find truth? How could that be used to benefit us now? Because we have all these translations, and we have this wonderful thing called the New World Translation.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell us about the project you're doing yourself in your personal study with the New World Translation?
I've been doing extensive study. I own the New World Translation. I compare New Translations like any other Bible that's out there. What people need to understand is no matter what, whether if you have the American Standard Bible, the English Standard Version, the King James, it doesn't matter. All of them have their positive points and their negative points. Now, the average reader, English reader, won't know that. An English reader cannot know the mistakes. You would have to know the language of Greek, biblical Greek, as well as the Hebrew, to know the linguistic nuances and how translators, their choices of words, it matters what words they choose. And the fact is that Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, this is an ancient text. It's very difficult. And there's certain words that may have one than several meanings. One Hebrew word can have 2 or 3 shades of meaning. So when you're reading, context what determines what's the primary meaning of the verse. And again, that all depends if you understand the context. This is what is key. When I would learn by the academia world, they told me that context is king. Not your opinions, context. So if you look at the context, you have to abide by the rule of the context, and it makes perfect sense. In other words, you're not reading into the Bible, you're letting the Bible speak for itself linguistically. Whether you like it or not, whether it doesn't support your belief, if you claim that you are a lover of truth, then if that word tells you something that doesn't support your theology, then you should accept what the text is telling you, whether you like it or not. Sadly, some people don't. Some people tend to want to support and stick with their own belief systems, and not be faithful to what the text is really saying.
Very good. It's very interesting. So now, we call this show Topical Discussions with Josh and Caleb. Now people know a little bit of your background, your interests. I mean, that's just in the little time I've gotten to know you, I see that you look at that as your recreation, just getting into what the context of what the text says in Hebrew and just comparing it to not only New World Translation, but ESV, American Standard, or whatever. You've helped me to see that all these translations have their inherited errors, and they have their slip-ups, but that's just because it's very difficult, almost fully impossible to really translate literally from Hebrew to English, right? Am I correct?
Right, you can't. There's an old saying that a translator is a traitor. There's a saying. The reason why they call it a traitor,
I love it,
is because the fact is that in any language, let's say me and you, Josh, we speak Spanish. If I was somebody gave me an English letter and say to him, hey, can you translate this in Spanish for my friend who can't read English? Well, that person is entrusting me to express his or her thought accurately into the language, into their native language. Now, in Spanish, there may be words that are not found in like the English may have. So I have to use good judgment and find words that in Spanish at least come close to the idea expressed in the English, okay? Because in English, there's a lot of idioms that are not found in Spanish. And idioms, believe it or not, are very important to understand information, especially a verse or a text. And the Hebrew is full of Hebrew idioms. Those idioms are very, 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 very extremely difficult to translate that into English. There is no way that can be done. You can only understand that if you understand Hebrew, the Hebrew thought patterns, how Hebrew people think. You can't express those ideas into English. You can just give them a taste. That's as close as you're going to get, a little taste. The way one of my professors compared it, it's like imagine if you see a fresh water source, a waterfall. It's like drinking right directly from the waterfall itself and the source, but the people long miles away are just, the little puddle, the little streams of water, they're just getting a taste of it, but they're not getting the purity of it from the source. It's the same way. So it's very difficult, and people, average English readers have to understand that it doesn't matter what version you use. I hear cases called Bible wars. You got one people say, oh, my King James Version is the better, it's purity, and you got another camp that says, oh, no, the American Standard is better, oh, no, the ESV is better. You know what? There is no war, because God did not write that in English. He didn't write it in Spanish. He didn't write it in those languages. He wrote it in the one tongue, which is Hebrew. Okay,
so now, to clarify, is that to say that, okay, where does that leave me? I don't speak Hebrew. So does that mean I'm not going to be able to understand the Word of God?
No, of course not. I get people like, you're telling me no. I'm not saying that you can't. You could pretty much get the fundamental understanding in the Bible fundamentally. That's not hard. You can get it. But you're going to be missing out in a lot of deeper, rich meanings that can't be expressed, that would be very difficult. So, yeah, you'll get an understanding. It doesn't take, like a rocket scientist. You'll understand the basic stories of the Bible, the accounts and the people. But you'll miss out in a lot of rich, deep teaching. Okay, let me just give you a little taste, just a small example of what I mean, so you'll get what I'm coming from. I told one of the ex-witnesses, or what should we say, extra witnesses, Jehovah's Witnesses that come and see me once in a while, and I gave him a little taste of what I'm referring to when I said, you read the New Testament, when you read the birthplace of Jesus, okay, in English it says Bethlehem. Now, the average reader would see that and say, okay, yeah, so what? He was born in a place called Bethlehem. And that's all he's going to get. But a Hebrew reader that knows the Hebrew would get a much deeper understanding, because in Hebrew, the place that is called in English Bethlehem, okay, in Hebrew, it is pronounced Beit Lechem, which means house of bread. Now, what did Jesus said a few months afterwards in the account of Matthew, where he said, I am the bread of life that came down from heaven? When you connect the dot, you see the beauty, the imagery, that if you can connect, wow, that makes sense. He's the bread, the lechem, that came down. And where was he born? In the city of David, called the house of bread. So you start connecting dots like that, and you see imagery. But see, the average English reader will miss that out. They won't get it. They won't connect the dots. So does that mean they won't understand who Jesus is? Of course not. They'll still know that Jesus is the Messiah. They'll understand it. They'll know his mission. But they'll miss out on some very deep stuff that can't be expressed in English.
So
I just wanted to say he did a really great job describing what translators call the dynamic equivalence method. What's the name of the gentleman that you're talking to?
Thanks, Taylor.
Brilliant. Really good job. And I think you did a great job also explaining it in terms that people can plainly understand.
Amen. I loved it.
Yeah. Great job.
What did he say? A translator is a traitor?
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's what it is. I don't mean to be rude, but that's what the academic
I love
was.
it. No, it's great. And you're right, because nowadays these translators that are coming out of these college or these wherever they're coming from to get their education, they're doing some bad stuff. But I got to tell you, what you said earlier was so true. The Hebrew language is very fun to learn, especially if you stick to the biblical words. Because biblical words describe things that English couldn't even begin to understand. It's so wonderful. I'm just glad you brought that out, brother.
Oh, thank you. I gave an example to another brother. His head flipped when I say, you want to get a little taste of the Hebrew mindset. There's a difference between the Greek mindset and the Hebrew mindset. Okay, the Hebrew mindset, theirs is about the five senses. Okay, taste, touch, feel. Take, for example, time. If I say let's say to you, describe to me the future and the past. Now, to a Westerner, he says the past is, that's behind me. The future is ahead of me. I'm looking forward to the future, and that's where my mind is, and that's what I'm looking at. Now, to an ancient biblical Hebrew people in that culture in Abraham's time, they didn't see time the way that the Greek Western people think about it. If I told, let's say, to a native Hebrew people at that time, what is past to a Hebrew person's thinking? Past is something in front of them. Why? Because they can see their past. They cannot see their future. So the future is behind them while the past is in front of them. Because it's about your eyes. You can see. In the Greek mindset, they see it as a motion, forward and backward. Hebrew people don't think like that as concerning time. So that's just a little snippet of how they think. So can you imagine when you're reading the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew text, you're basically getting an entirely different worldview, not the way the Western people think. This is why it's incorrect to read the Bible in Western thinking. You're going to misconstrue a lot of passages. You're going to misunderstand a lot of words that Jesus said because he was Jewish, and he was speaking to a Jewish audience. So you're going to misconstrue a lot of stuff if you don't have an understanding of the culture, the mindset of these people, why they said it, how they said it. Bible reading becomes, for me now, is much more enriching. Right now, I'm not dependent on a translation. I read it directly from the Hebrew Scriptures. So, excuse me?
May I speak? My name is Stanley.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I was just about to kind of, be a bit supportive of what you were saying there. Now, first off, the one about the translator being a traitor, that's actually an old Roman proverb, traduttore, traditore, okay, which is virtually the same in modern Italian, okay?
Right.
But I myself, I am an ex-witness who I am a student of Koine, actually ancient Greek as a whole. Hebrew, Aramaic, Coptic, and Gothic. Okay, you can probably recognize the relationships there. But,
yeah, that's fascinating.
One thing I realized a pretty good while ago, okay, and I've noticed some folks are coming to it, and that is the fact, okay, as, most churches and folks, their theology and how they understand the Bible is based on Greek philosophy.
Correct. Yeah, you're correct.
The Bible is a Semitic book, a very different mindset. Okay, Hebrew is more concrete. I don't know. Are you familiar with Jeff Brenner and some of what he's putting out there?
Yeah, I'm acquainted with some of his some of his information.
And he likes to point out it's concrete language as opposed to Greek and most Western languages, which are not.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand the culture, and it kind of makes most theology through the ages pretty well useless.
That's what it is.
And then
the Bible, but you said it correctly.
Something to both of you. I want to just kind of pose. I'd be fascinated to hear how you would both answer this question. I run into a lot of people. And again, this is not to make this like an atheist versus theist thing. We love them all, whatever. But a lot of people, even people that are on the fence, they see a lot of accounts in the Bible and they're horrified, and they're like, this doesn't make sense. And they say, how could a God of love do this? Or how is it that Lot could offer up his daughter to be raped by the people, and all this stuff. And a lot of that is because we're not understanding the culture, or we're not understanding the context, or is it we're not really understanding the text? What would you say about that?
First, Caleb? Or are you curious about how I'd put it?
Oh, well, just ask your question. What's your take on that?
We are imposing a modern judgment with modern sensibilities on another time, okay? On, things past where people thought differently, they act differently, their standards were very different. And also, you want to add to that, you want to go, judging God for some of the things he did. You have to remember, at various points in history, he dealt with folks in different ways. For instance, during the time of Israel there, part of the covenant, he was their king, okay? And now if you sit back and remember, a king has to do certain things. He has to enforce his word. Okay, and such as that, then then the law of Moses and the fact that God himself at times acted the way he did makes perfect sense. So those two factors are over.
Very good. How about you, Caleb? Are you in agreement with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it has to do a lot to do with the culture mindset at the time, and sometimes people judge based it on their 20th century their view on the morality on the 20th century, and don't understand the culture at the time, and it's very difficult. And it's not really difficult because I don't know if you guys ever saw a program on TV. I can't remember offhand, where there was a soldier who was being hidden by I forgot, I think it was in Yemen or some, and they were hiding this guy. And the family was there, and he was bleeding, and he was sitting there, and for an American, he couldn't understand. I said, why, the Islamic people, they're coming here, they're gonna destroy your village. Why are you doing that? He said, in my culture, you're a guest at my house, your life is in my hands. So as long as you're on my roof, my responsibility is to protect you. He couldn't understand that, because in their culture, that's how they think. So when you look at it from that perspective, like in the story of Lot, being in the Middle East at that time, he had the same mindset. Anybody that was in their house, his responsibility was to protect, even to the point where, to our sensibility, to say who would dare to give their own daughters? See, but we're thinking it from our time. But if we were brought up in that culture and that mindset, we wouldn't be saying it that way. So I guess it's just a clash of cultures, and that's what it is. So when they read the Bible, again, the modern readers have a difficulty. They stumble sometimes over culture, or they stumble sometimes over the fact that the Bible doesn't give all the answers to a lot of our theological questions, One thing that you got to keep in mind, and you have to admit, that the ancient biblical text, the way we have it today in Hebrew, is actually difficult. It reminds me of a guy by the name of Arthur C. Pink, or Arthur W. Pink, as a matter of fact. He said something that made me laugh. I'm trying to remember. He said that the Bible does not yield its meaning to lazy people. That's what he said. It is interesting because it is true. The Bible is much deeper. It's very, very, very complicated. It's rich. It's rich and full of idiomatic isms in the text. There's rich thought patterns that unfortunately you can't see that in English. And like, for example, even in the first book of Genesis, for example, we see that God doesn't answer every question. It reminds me that some Jewish thinkers believe that the Bible reveals this even in its very first letter. If you look at the book of Genesis in Hebrew, in the Torah scroll, the first letter you see in the Hebrew word Bereshit.
Bereshit, yep.
Right, Bereshit. And that letter is the bat that gives it the B sound, the letter B. And
okay, fine.
So the rabbis asked the question, it's interesting because the rabbis asked the question, why do the scriptures begin with that second letter of the alphabet rather than the first, which is the Aleph, right? And he answers, is to show that the scriptures do not answer every question, and not all knowledge is accessible to man. He said, but some is reserved for God himself. So the point that he's trying to make is he's not trying to discourage study and inquiry, but what he's trying to say, he's trying to teach that the Bible should not be used as like a vehicle for endless esoteric exploration. And this is where we get a paradox. You can study God's Word all your life, okay, and never reach the end of it. But you cannot force the Bible to answer your every question, twisting and wrangling the text until it satisfies your every curiosity. See, God simply does not choose. Sometimes God, doesn't choose to reveal some things. And it's like, I remember one rabbi that I talked, he made me laugh when he said this. He cracked me up. I can't remember the name of the rabbi, but I did have a discussion with him about that. And he told me, he put it this way. I'm trying to remember. He said, speculating about what God has not revealed, he said, it's like pressing on your eyelids with your fingers. The light that you think you see comes only from your own imagination. And that made me chuckle, because it's true. And we have to be careful when we're analyzing and reading and carefully, having the proper respect of the scriptures, and not going to the trap of fanciful, like the Watchtower has done, with reading into the Bible and making fanciful juggery of words to support their interpretations.
Faithful and discreet slave, the 10 virgins.
There you go, exactly.
The wild beast with the 7 horns.
Right.
7 headed, So, we kind of got into this, we kind of just, I don't know what the right word is. I don't want to sound, but just we marinated a little bit on, some of these few topics. What we did plan on getting into, we have a little bit of time left, but we did plan on getting into what we talked is about the two-person rule. Now, you might think, well, two-person rule that the Watchtower has, what in the world would that have to do with Hebraic interpretation, language, linguistics, or whatever? But you have a way, and that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, you have a way of showing how sometimes when you learn the Hebrew and the meaning and the context of what was really trying to be said, it helps you to distinguish that between a lot of the things that the Watchtower tried to interpret. Is that the case? Do you agree that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the time is I don't have the time, but because we went on to topic, which is fine.
We actually have like 20 more minutes, actually.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to cut it. Like, I'm going to give you a 20-minute scoop on the whole, which is basically the whole text is based on how they understand Deuteronomy chapter 19, verse 15. Now I'm going to read it. Now, of course, I mean, many of you probably going to like this, but I'm going to read it out of their silver sword. Sometimes it's good to use their translations to get their point across. And even in their own Bible, they'd be surprised that they can't even see it. It's in front of them. Chapter 19 and verse 15, it says, "No single witness may convict another for any error." It doesn't say error. The Hebrew actually is the Hebrew word avon, and it means either depravity or crookedness. It's something twisted. But in here they translate it as error. But it says, "For any error or any sin that he may commit. On the testimony of 2 witnesses or on the testimony of 3 witnesses, the matter should be established." Now, when you read that, there you go. I mean, it clearly says there that you need at least 2 or 3 witnesses for any error or any sin. But you would have to ask the simple question, what did Moses mean by any error or any sin? What sin was he talking about? Was he talking about any particular sin, or was there specific sin that he's referring to here? Well, what's interesting is that if you were to look at Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 6, it's almost like the Bible explains itself. It's like it clarifies it, what Moses is trying to say, recording on chapter 19. Because if you look at verse 6, he says this, "On the testimony of 2 witnesses or 3 witnesses, the one who is to die should not be put to death. He must not be put to death on the testimony of 1 witness." Oh, okay, now we're getting into a point. We're talking about capital punishment. If someone is to die, he did an act that violated the Torah, like, for example, idolatry, or in any type of sin that encompass a capital punishment, God did not, in this case, because the life of the person was in jeopardy, he did not want to accept the testimony of 1 witness only. And this is confirmed in Numbers chapter 35, verse 30. Again, he repeats it again. And I'm going to read it there. The book of Numbers, chapter 35, verse 35. Chapter 35, verse 30, excuse me. In verse 30, Moses quotes here saying, "Whoever kills a person should be put to death as a murderer on the testimony of witnesses, but no one will be put to death on the testimony of just 1 witness." Now, what's interesting about this verse is that there's only 1 crime that God did not demand any witnesses whatsoever. Not even 1. And we'll read that in Deuteronomy chapter 22, that I'm going to read. And it's concerning about rape, which we find the society fails to grasp that pedophilia is rape. It's a crime. But they treat it as a sin. No, it's a crime. And if you read here in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse, I'm going to read where the point I'm going to get across, which is 25. He says, "If, however, the man happened to meet the engaged girl in the field and the man overpowered her and laid down with her, the man who laid down with her is to die by himself. And you must do nothing to the girl. The girl has not committed a sin deserving of death. Notice what he said. This case is the same as when a man attacks his fellow man and murders him. So just like I read in the previous text, in this case, in a rape charge, okay, especially if she was attacked in the field where nobody's around, she can scream. Who's going to save her? Nobody. In this case, Jehovah says, you know what? Treat this case as a murder. Execute him. Capital punishment. No witnesses. Done. Done deal. That's the only case where it's not required a witness because of the circumstances of the crime. Now, you would think that the brothers who claim they read the Bible and they have the so-called truth, that they can't figure out so simple a thing and associate the pedophilic cases as a rape. It's a crime. And the people that should have authority in cases like this are the authorities. Caesar. Not them. Not the elders. Not the branch office. But the police. The proper authorities. But they don't do that. And this is what's causing them problems because they misunderstand these texts and they apply it as though it is a general sin, which they quote Matthew 18, which I wish I had the time to discuss that. Maybe in the next show I can get into detail about Matthew 18, about the textual issues that are there. But that's what the witness used for their support. But when you look at it, there is no support. They're misunderstanding the text, and they're not doing what they say they do. Compare text with text. Let the Bible speak for itself. Don't read into it. Sadly, many do that. Okay, and me and you, we discussed about the difference between exegesis and eisegesis.
Why don't you just explain that really quick? Just what
eisegesis is reading into it. Exegesis is letting the Bible by itself. It means to come out. In other words, you're letting the text speak for itself. But that's a two method of Bible study that is common around the world. But many fall into that trap of reading into the Bible because it's easy for them. You know, they'll pick up a verse in Matthew or a count in the Hebrew scriptures. Oh, see there you go. See right there.
Like when we used to
cherry pickers, cherry picking. That's not fair. You can't cherry pick.
Right. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say when we used to explain 1914 and we used to cherry pick. Well, Numbers here says day for a year, and then you flick over to another part of the Bible, and it's like I don't know. I can't even explain it. But like we used to cherry pick all these different pages.
The Bible is open to no interpretation by man. We know that.
Right. Correct. The Bible itself doesn't need help. We have to understand, those who believe, I'm speaking to those who believe, and the Bible is the Word of God. The Word of God is a product of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit doesn't need your help. You need help. We pray for it to get guidance and help us to open our eyes. There's a beautiful psalm. I can't remember. I'm kind of like I'm brain dead. I'm getting tired. There's a text that says, I think it's Psalm where David is saying, open my eyes that I may see the hidden wondrous things of your Torah. And that's what we have to ask God for help, for His Spirit, to help us to open our eyes so that we can understand His Word. His Word, not our words, not our opinions, but His Word. And where we beg to give us His wisdom, not our wisdom. And God only reveals His truth to His children, to those who are humble, who have a heart that's humble, who are teachable, not full of pride and opinionated. Those are the people that live in darkness and they don't see the light. So when we have the attitude of humility and recognize that we're limited, that we don't have all the answers, and it's okay to say, I don't know. I've taught many people, discussed many people, when they ask me a question, I say, you know what, that's okay, I don't know. See, not everything is revealed in the Scriptures, and that's okay, because that basically means that belongs in the domain of God. God has the answers. And in his own due time, in his own good place, he will reveal the answers. All the answers will be answered. And in a way, it puts a test on us as individuals as to our faith on him. Because it's easy to say, oh, yeah, I have faith in God. But anybody can say that. Like a rock can say I have faith in God. But it's not saying that matters. It's your action that matters in the end. And the determining factor, after everything is said and done, it's your actions that will speak, not your words. I hope I didn't offend anybody.
Yep. We do definitely don't want to offend anybody, but we have, and I just want to get on my soapbox for a moment. I think I've tried to walk a fine line since I started early today at 3 o'clock, because I want to be a place where everybody could feel comfortable and safe. So whether you believe in God, whether you don't believe in God, whether you're on your fence, there's going to be something on my network for everybody. When I first started the program, we had AJ and Emmy had a lot to say. They're pretty much agnostic or whatever, but they still kept it with respect to the people that believe. Wendy's a born-again Christian. She came on here. I really appreciated how she explained that she has a certain belief that's for her, but she's coming here for help with for her PTSD and anxiety and all that. But she's just non-apologetic and honest in expressing, but yes, I do have this faith in God. I believe in Jesus, but whatever. Different people have expressed in a respectful way what has worked for them and why they believe what they believe. So, I'm not, it'd be improper for me, especially since I am a Christian, to just give the open platform to just people that don't believe necessarily in God and not give the same equal airtime for those that do. But in the end, we were all part of a destructive mind control cult that used religion and used the Bible and theology and doctrine to harm a lot of people. And, going back to that two-person rule thing, just to make sure I understand it correctly, one of the things the first time you had spoken about it, really to make it simple, was that two-person rule only applied that another person had to be there in matters of capital punishment. That's it, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
So it was the only reason you need another witness is because you're about to execute somebody, and life is sacred. So if you're going to execute somebody, it has to be at the mouth of two witnesses, not one. But the society cherry picks that particular verse to apply to pedophilia. It just doesn't make sense.
Right. And it's how they pick it like a cherry pick. They cherry pick the verse. They try to fit it to their agenda, and sadly, that's what happens. And then there are many examples. I mean, I'm probably going to, the next show I'll point out some examples of what they do, of how they do a sleight of hand, should we say, on words, and interject an idea. And when people, who don't know, they say, oh, yeah, it does support it, see? But then when you really analyze it carefully, say, wait a minute, no, it doesn't say that. And if people are not careful, it's very easy to be entrapped.
I think you did a great job. I think you did a great job in really exposing that they really don't have a scriptural foot when it comes to pedophilia because of what you showed through Scripture that, if a girl is being raped, you don't need any witnesses. And I'm sure that's an asexual reference. I mean, that means that not only just a little girl, but also a little boy also, basically an innocent victim doesn't, is in the woods and here this person takes advantage of them, then that's the equivalent of capital punishment, and you don't really need 2 or 3 witnesses. So they actually don't have even a scriptural foot in the door to justify their 2 witnesses rule because it doesn't even apply in this instance.
Right, correct. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have anything to say? I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut everybody. I'm just going to make it official. Let just anybody have anything to comment or ask or to say hi to Caleb. Now's the time.
I think that everything that Caleb said was well said. Right on the money.
Okay.
And this is Jersey Girl, by the way. Everything that you said is right on.
Yes, Caleb, I appreciate you bringing out the Hebrew aspects of this, because the Hebrew language, just like the Greek, is very beautiful, and the words explain everything. God was, he used, these names all have meanings, and that's a wonderful thing, and the words have meanings. And like you said, some of this cannot be translated to English. That's just the bottom line. But, as witnesses, we weren't taught that. We were taught to trust the translators of the Watchtower Society, who were supposedly the best. But I really appreciate you bringing up this subject of the rule of the witness rule, because that has destroyed so many lives. And if people could just hear that and learn that and understand that, not as a witness or a Jew or as a Christian or anything, but as a person, that the way you explained it and the way they explained it, you can see the deception and the it's horrible. I thank you for doing that. That was really important.
Okay, thank you. That was kind of.
And sister, if you don't mind, I don't know if you have a issue with privacy, but can you just let us know your name, where you're calling from?
Who, me?
Or you could, yes.
That's Wendy.
Oh, Wendy. Oh, okay, I didn't recognize you.
I'm a Hebrew lover, man. I love
so you were the one that was saying. So you know the Hebrew and the Greek. Okay, great.
I'm not a pro. I'm a student.
Josh.
Especially Greek now. But the Hebrew language blew me away when I learned that the names in.
I'm here.
Josh, I have to call you back. My battery's about to die. I'm going to call you on my cell right back, okay?
Yeah. Oh, well, okay, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh, he said something about the names and how, you can't translate certain things into English, and how the Watchtower has broken that rule. And the thing that I really love, I always say that God has a sense of humor, because he knew what was going to happen, as time went on. And just knowing that if you take the names if you look it up online, it's really out there now about the gospel in Genesis. That will kind of give a better insight to new people of what he's talking about, how names have meanings, and these names spell out the gospel. So if you could just learn the biblical words and the biblical terms and the biblical names and what they mean, that alone will speak. I know Gus will agree with me that will speak volumes. It's almost like a picture speaks 1,000 words. Well, one Hebrew word and one Greek word will take you a long way if you learn it in the native language.
Right. I'm actually taking biblical Hebrew at the Hebrew University online myself. So
I love it. I wish.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Hello.
in my case, since I did come in earlier, I'm entirely self-study. Okay, I'm disabled, and I love languages, okay? I have a gift in that area. I cannot afford formal study, so I'm entirely a self-taught student, okay? Oh, and by the way, I'm going to quickly add another thing to the loop. They how they love to draw their stuff out of the Mosaic Law. After defining rape using the passage there in Deuteronomy,
right,
they ignore something, and that is you go one verse down, 29, and it tells us how if a man takes a woman who is not engaged, the death penalty was not even on the table, period.
Mm.
And if you go to Exodus, although it appears here that the guy had to marry her, if you go to Exodus, you'll find out in the first telling of the law that the father could refuse to let that happen. Okay, so a rape victim didn't have to end up married to her rapist, as a lot of people charge. Okay? And so, what are they doing? They take kids who just let things get a little out of hand, and they basically execute them as far as the faith is concerned, based on the scripture which applied to engage women, and that was because in the ancient Near East and Middle East, and even to this day, a person who was engaged was considered married in all but the bed. So a total misunderstanding of what's going on and what's being said. Again, it's that Greek philosophy when you get down to it.
Oh, yeah. And what's your name, sister, if you don't mind me?
Me?
No, I don't know if it was a brother or sister that was just talking.
Yes, my name, I know what I sound like on the phone, okay? My name is Stanley Loper.
Oh, Stanley Loper. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
And Stanley, what I'm trying to do here, this is an experiment. I've never done anything like this. I've never had a radio show. I've never started a network. This is all new to me. And, I'm coming out of the Watchtower. I felt for many years I thought I had all this vast knowledge because I've read the Insight book cover to cover. I've read the new one, and I'm just trying to approach my study of the Bible now like I don't know anything, like a clean, the canvas is empty, it's a clean slate. And so
I know where you're coming from. I did that myself.
Right. So I'm hearing a lot of people that have a lot of insight, a lot of knowledge, a lot of scholars here, so to speak. And I'm not saying that in a mocking way. I respect everybody that mentioned. Maybe this could be a place where we could share. I have to say I'm on the controls here on the conference call, and I was a little bit nervous of how this particular show was going to go because it is a biblical theme, and nobody's hung up yet. Everybody stayed on the line. It's about 20 people here, so maybe we can make. I really hoping we can make this a regular thing. I'm not trying to say I want to start another Kingdom Hall meeting or anything like that, but I know I want to get. I enjoy it, and I need to deepen my knowledge. So, what do you guys think? What do you think? I would like. Well, basically, Stanley, I hope you could, return again next week.
I think this is a really good
I'll
idea.
try to do that. You should find me. I joined the Facebook thing there, JW Cult Free Network. So you should be able to be there and contact me. Okay, I will definitely do that. Now, Wendy, I'm chatting with you on Facebook in the chat. Caleb, his phone battery died. Can I send you?
I'm back, Josh.
Oh, okay.
I'm back, Josh.
There he is. Okay. Yeah, I'm here still.
Very good. Well, Stanley just shared some very good insight, adding on to what you were saying about, capital punishment and rape and all that stuff. So I wish I could have taken notes. Wendy told me to take notes. I should have grabbed a pen and told me to take notes. So does anybody else have anything to say? We're wrapping it up in a little bit.
Yes. Thank you, Caleb, for your insight. I really like that you pointed out the error in the policies on sexual abuse, because that's very important. And people aren't given a voice, and it's not biblical, as you pointed out. So thank you for that. And it's very true that we're limited in the language. So I myself am at the mercy of the English translation because that's what I, know. So thank you.
You're welcome, dear. Josh?
Hello, is anybody there?
Yeah, I think Josh either lost connection or something.
Yeah, sometimes when you first start out on a network, there's a lot of kinks. So, but if everybody's still there, I think this is going wonderful. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's not bad for the first time. So he did pretty good.
Yeah,
thank
you, Wendy.
We have a lot of love going around. It's easy.
I think dealing with language and biblical language in particular is really, really a difficult concept to get terms. And I think he did a really great job doing that in a way that people all understand. You know, people that probably have no training whatsoever in biblical languages, and yet he gave it in a very user-friendly manner.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I got kicked off. I'm back now. One of the things, one of the projects that me and Caleb would have started, and was that Gus that was just talking?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Okay, you indirectly. We've been working together without actually formally being introduced or anything, but you're part of this project that we've been working on as well. There's a Facebook group called XJW Sincere Help for Doubting and Current Jehovah's Witnesses. I know it's a long name. But Caleb and Gus post quite a bit in that forum if you join it. And some of the things that he spoke about today, a lot of times he puts it in writing. And what's really good about that particular group, he puts links and sometimes pictures of archaeological finds and different things like that. Very interesting, different manuscripts and whatnot. And ultimately, what Gus and Caleb are trying to do on that particular page, you know, they want to disseminate information to everyone, but also to help witnesses with doubts that are still stuck within the religion. And I will tell you, I know personally there's a few current witnesses on there that I know personally that I've met. Well, like when I used to live in Atlanta in different states, that I've kept in touch with. And when I disassociated myself and I put my disassociation letter online, there were some of the few that didn't unfriend me. And they were very saddened by me leaving the organization, but they just, for whatever reason, they couldn't unfriend me. There's one woman on there that her son recently got this fellowship. And so she's having a struggle with it because she's only been a witness, her and her husband, 4 years. So they're really having a hard time with this shunning concept. So I don't think they're really following it. And they've been, from what I understand, they've been like inactive. So everyone, if you join that page, just know whatever encouragement you could give to help these sheep without a shepherd, so to speak, be much appreciated.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I forgot to mention there that on the community here that I'm a fader. I'm not this fellowship. I'm a fader. Actually, I help what they call, which I like the phrase you called it, the conscious class. I think you called it.
I call it the Nicodemus class because the
Nicodemus class.
Caleb has a bunch of elders that come to him to his house to get help with their talks.
Wow.
When they have questions about Hebrew and stuff, So Caleb, the reason, well, I'll just let you explain that. Why is it that you have decided to remain a fader and not totally, officially remove yourself from the organization?
Well, one, the area I'm at, the Spanish congregations over here really don't give a rat's butt about you. Basically, I'm invisible. They don't care. They don't call. They don't bother me. They're not interested. I am nothing. Listen, I'm just an amoeba. And that's it. So, but what's funny about that is that among the congregation, there are, like I said, conscious people there who are aware of things going wrong. And I get people coming here, or they call me. My cousin, who's an elder, for example, he will call me for his talks, like if he's got a problem, which is kind of funny that he will call a person who's inactive to help him in his talks. One time, I think I mentioned him that one time. I said, don't you think that's kind of funny? I say, oh, I don't see it that way. I say, well, you tell that to Brooklyn, and you see what happens. They come here and they ask different questions, and it gives me the opportunity. I have the leeway to help those that have doubts and they want to get out, or they have questions and they're afraid to ask. They ask me because they know this is an open avenue, and they know I'm not this fellowship, so I have an edge there too. They can come and talk to me and ask me questions, and that's the avenue that I have. So in a sense, no, I'm not this fellowship, and no, I do not go to the meetings, but it gives me an avenue to help those, because I have a funny feeling that there's going to be a mass exodus.
And you're going to have to help a lot of these brothers that are going to come out. They're going to be confused, hurt, and this is the opportunity for us to really help them out and do the best that we can.
Amen. You know what? More power to you. I think that the longer a person can stay and stomach the trash, you know, that's coming out of the wash hour pulpit. But I tried to stay as long as I could. And if you can stay and you can cast some seeds, it's funny, the witnesses used to say placing tracks was like planting seeds. But if you can plant some seeds and make a difference while you're in, then, more power to you. I mean, I really do encourage that if a person has the sanity to withstand what they're doing, and if they can actually, do what Jesus said. Jesus said, be innocent as doves and subtle as serpents. If they can do that and actually help their family get out, that's great. And that is, first you have to get a person mentally out before you can get them actually prepared to actually leave. Because I'll tell you, I've been out for 18 years, and it's taken 18 years for me to get my life together. It takes a long time for you to heal. You come out, you're all alone. You have all your family, all your friends are just gone. And so it takes a while to build community. Now, it's a lot easier to build community now with social media. When I came out, the internet was just beginning, and the best thing you had was Java Chat. But, things have changed now as far as being able to have some sense of community online, but there's nothing like the touch of a person and the hug of a person and someone to talk to that's close by. And so, if you can stay in and if you can get, a couple of members of your family or your spouse, out, then please do. I encourage people to stay.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not officially in. Like, I don't go to the meetings, and the elders don't come to me. They don't call me. I've been a fader for many, many years, and the elders don't do their pastoral work like they're supposed to. They're supposed to come and visit the inactive ones. I've been inactive, and I have not seen one elder come knocking at my door. And that's good. I like it like that. Because if it did happen, then you know what? I told Josh, if it did happen, it came to a point that they come to visit me and they put me in a spot. I don't have a problem of being disfellowship. I don't care. It doesn't fade me. It doesn't affect me anymore. So, but in the meantime, while I'm in the position that I'm in, I'm taking full benefit of it and trying to help others that are in the organization, that are doubting, that are seeing changes they are not liking. They're a little confused, and
my wife used to meet with the group, and then we would just leave. We wouldn't go out in the territory and just go have breakfast. But so whatever you could do. Even when I was in the congregation, I would give comments, and the friends actually would compliment my comments because I wasn't just reading stuff right out of the literature. I was actually giving comments.
That's what happened to me, Gus. I don't mean to cut you, Gus. That's what happened to me. It's like, and that's why people were so shocked. But it's like, I've been listening to the same regurgitated crap for years. I didn't need to bring the books or study. And they're like, how was it that you're commenting? You don't even have a book. All you have is the Bible. I'm like, we've been repeating the same Watchtower jargon for years. And they thought I was so strong and so insightful. They were shocked when I left.
So you can do a lot there to help people if you're in the congregation, and you don't have to really put a lot of effort. You don't have to go out and feel. It's just, right now now with the new cyber time, it's a lot easier not to go ahead and fake your time, because they're going to be doing it anyway. They're going to be doing it. The friends are going to be putting, I put 50 hours on the internet this month. They make pioneering so easy. I left at the wrong time. It's really easy being a witness now.
I got to see their new slips now. Now they got videos of how many videos you showed, how many little leaflets you gave out. And I said, serious, I can imagine these witnesses with their little carts. They'll look at the cart and sit there and make time and say, I made 50 hours just looking at the cart. See, I'm just doing Jehovah's service.
Let me ask you guys something. You know, I know like on John Cedar's website and different activists, they talk about an information war. Now they're getting into this silent witnessing. I just started learning about this a couple of days ago. I mean, are we the counter voice to that? Do you think?
Well, yeah, because you figure
they're coming in. They're coming in without enough ammunition. It seems because
they're in panic mode right now. They know, you know, the biggest mistake, and I guess they'll come to that point. The biggest mistake that the society's ever done is coming themselves full blown on the internet. This is the information age. And everything is exposed now. Back in the 80s, I remember, back in the 80s and 70s, you've never heard of these men called the governing body. You never heard of PEEP. Nothing. Barely. They were very secluded, secret, quiet. The materials, old publications, you couldn't get access to that. You would have to go to a brother's personal library, and some of them were very iffy if you even touched their stuff. They didn't want you looking at it. But now, no one cares. That's all over the internet now. You can get old books from society back to the 1800s easily. But back in the 80s, it wasn't like that. So now with the information age, that's it. They're done. There's transparency now. There's no hiding. It's too late. So anything that they do is going to be leaked out, exposed, and that's good. They're basically, this religion is going to be like Scientology. Gradually, it's going to die off, maybe 50,000 members, secluded, a little spot. They'll print here one couple of books or whatever, but the mass membership, they'll die off. People wake up and gradually see what's going on, you know. And it's like every other cult that's ever been on this earth. They gradually dissipate into a little small group, and only a small group that are completely have their brains like mush, they'll stick to that. They'll be faithful to that, and they'll die like that, sadly, you know, with that belief. And that's what's going to end up happening eventually. You know, it reminds me of the words of the Acts, where he talks about Gamaliel, and they were concerned about the great influence of the Christian movement of the believers of Yeshua, of Jesus. And he said, you know what? Leave these men alone. He said, for all you know, if this is a work of man, guess what? It will fall. It'll eventually fall. But he said, but if it's a work of God, he said, you're going to find yourself fighting against God. So leave them. Let them do their thing. Eventually, it's going to, like every other cult that's ever been, slowly, gradually, the rivers will dry up, people will wake up, and that'll be it. That'll be the end. You know? At least that's my point of view on it.
Yeah, very comforting. Very comforting point of view indeed. So, I would like to have some feedback. How has anybody been listening since the start of me programming? Because this is the last show that we have. I mean, we still have the lines open for fellowship or whatever. But, like, overall, how did we do for our first launch?
Very well.
Thank you.
A+. I love it. Down to earth, honest, true. Everybody here sounds that they have the same agenda, which is to come here and share the issues, not the personalities. And I love it, and I'm looking forward to being a regular listener. Thank you.
Hi, Josh, Caleb. I have a comment I'd like to make. I feel that we did an awesome job, and I posted that on the group just not a few minutes ago. I do want to say this. This is why personal opinions need to be kept at bay. If someone makes a comment to explain the reasons they have taken a stance, and someone proceeds to try to assess that, we are in a live public group.
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, sister. Go ahead. Continue, Deborah.
We have to be careful, because if we start assessing people live publicly, we can be sued. If we take a stance that we are a therapist or a counselor, we can be sued. So